For those of you guys just joining us, we are going over calculator worksheet number 1, checking the answers. We actually talked about it yesterday. I rounded to 3 decimal places. You'll learn that about me because of calculus stuff. We'll talk about it later. Go ahead and check what you did and see if it measures up. Even if you're a 10th or a 100th off, something went wrong. Question?
I was going to say, so if you're a couple of decimal.
If you just didn't write as many decimal places, you're probably fine. I just didn't tell you in time to catch you to write all those decimal places. But if it's actually different, you need to go ahead and mark it wrong, put the right one, and then go back and say, what did I do? Let me give a quick example. Zeros, okay? If you're finding zeros, put something on that. If you're finding zeros, what does that mean that you're finding? What's another name for those? X-intercepts, perfect. So you're trying to see where the graph, if the graph crosses the x-axis, right? So question, how could you mess up finding a zero? From your experience, you guys are honest, tell me, how could you mess that up? How could someone mess that up? Maybe you use the y-intercept, but there's no, feature to do that, so you might not make that mistake as often. I heard another one. Okay, just not typing it in correctly. Totally something that happens from time to time. Maybe you just typed it in wrong. What else? What are the questions that it asks you to answer as you are getting to the zero on the graphing calculator? Because there are little questions down below, right? Left bound and right bound, and then guess, right? Okay. How could you mess that up? Maybe going right to left instead is going to kind of freak out if you try to do that. So it's probably going to tell you something like an error because it knows that what should be on the left and what should be on the right and what you did was wrong. That's one way. Does anybody know another way you can mess up? Let me show you without beating out my calculator. What if here was your graph? What if here was your x-intercept? That was kind of like one of the ones from the handbook, I think. This is what you're trying to get. And what if you were going fast, being a little bit lazy? You saw the cursor here-ish, and you're like, of course that's left, and then you did the cursor, and you thought it was past, it's really hard to see, and you actually made the right there. Do you see that that's not actually past? What's it going to do? No, it's going to give you possibly something, depending on where you put it. Especially if you're doing maximum or minimum. It will give you a value, but it's going to be a little bit off of the actual because you didn't let it fully get there. Does that make sense? Especially maximum, minimum. If you have 0, it might not. It might say no sign change. It should tell you an error on this one. But if you were doing a maximum min, let's do it that way. And you did the left. We'll say this is the vertex approximately. And you did the left here. You're being a little bit lazy. You did the right here. It might give you this as the maximum, which will be a little bit lower than that. And your decimal is going to be a little bit off. Does that make sense? So, if you're like a decimal point off, maybe even, there's another thing that could go wrong. You're left and right, putting it correctly, making sure that you're being safe, really on the left and really on the right, that could be a problem. How could you mess up the guess? How could the guess mess you up? Every now and then, can you be going too fast and forget to hit enter after guess and write down the guess and not write down the actual? Something else to think about. I've seen it time and time again. So, if your decimals are off, those are all things to consider. Guys, let's go ahead and all things considered. Check 3 and 4. We did talk about, I think, all of these yesterday: values, zeros, maximums, intersections. You guys talked about it in your groups mostly. Some of this you did have to think critically in the sense of what is the value when x is. If you think about it with your calculator, hopefully you think there's a value feature. But I do need you to attach that is a y value, and it's only the y value. It's not a point, it's specifically the function value. And that's really good for this year and for future math, that when it talks about the value of a function, it's specifically always looking for the y only. X gives us a point of reference, Y gives us the actual value. Do you guys find both intersections? Okay, today we are moving on to regressions, and we're moving on to that calculator worksheet number 2. Last night's homework was to finish the handbook, right? No, to finish the worksheet? Oh, right, the regression, the stat stuff. Sorry. To finish the handbook stat stuff, I apologize. Right? Which was like 7, 8, 9-ish? Maybe 8, 9, 10-ish? I think 11, 12, 13 is like the more mathy stuff, like exponents and random things like that. So yeah, you're supposed to finish the handbook. So we need to talk about the calculator worksheet number 2, because there are definitely places to get stuck on that one, or to get a little bit off. We'll put it that way. And then we need to finish the rest of the handbook, which should not be hard. If we can get through the stat stuff today and the calculator worksheet number 2, we are golden for tomorrow being our review, Friday being our quiz. Okay? Quiz on what? All that. Which is why I'm not taking the worksheet from you. Now this is a prime example of what did you need to have done, well yesterday, but technically it was today since I couldn't find the answer key. What do you need to have done, calculator worksheet number 1, so that you don't fall behind and you've actually, like you are where you're supposed to be so we can move on from there, right? Am I necessarily keeping you accountable right this second by picking it up? No. And if you were, say, not here, or say didn't quite have it done, could you technically not grade it, look at the video later and grade it later and still kind of catch up? But all of that just took what? Time that you should have been doing tonight's homework. Does that make sense? Anyway, just kind of showing you a few things as to how class is going to work. But I could have collected it, and I could have written down a grade, and I could have seen how well you attempted, even though there's not really much work to be shown, maybe why not really collected. Do you guys have any questions really quickly, besides being like a 10th off here or there? Alright. If you guys are a 10th off here or there, check it in the handbooks tonight. Come back with questions tomorrow. If you're not able to resolve the issue, let's go ahead and get back into the handbook. You guys were working with lists last night, right? Okay. Was number 9 or number 8 the first list problem? 9. Why did I put number 9 in the packet if there was no box and instructions or something to do? To try it out. And what did you need for number 10? Didn't you need number 9 in your calculator? And if there wasn't a box around it, do you think maybe some people would have skipped all the way over it, gotten to number 10, and been like, say what? So, number 9 was just to put it in your calculator. If you're wondering how to denote or how to show that you actually did it, you can say, check done. Just put a little check. That works. If you have it in your calculator, if you had it in your calculator. As you guys were looking at this last night, question, do you have to use this storing arrow? Maybe or maybe not, you weren't able to find it. It's the stove right above left-hand side on. Did you have to use this way to put the list in? No. What was the other way to put a list in? And what I would say is the easier way to put a list in? Yeah. Following the buttons at the top of the page, which were stat, and then enter. Whenever you want to put something into the calculator, you need to edit. We're going to do matrices later on this year. I think Mr. Che and Park didn't get to them. I don't remember. But you want to edit. You want to put in something that could go wrong. Make sure all of your data points are complete. It might be easy to put in this list, put in that list, and be one short. You guys should know. Go back, fix it, get it to line up. But stat, hit the stat button, then enter. If you don't have these numbers in yet, go ahead and throw them in really quickly. But then number 10, did anybody actually clear all their lists and have to put them back in? No, you guys are smarter than that. You just read it and kept going. No reactions. Okay. You guys are fun today. I gave you coffee. Okay, so clear lists. That's just if you want to get rid of them all. Is it really that hard on a table this size just to hit delete 5 times and clear it out? No. But what if you were in a stats class and there were 120 data points and you don't want them anymore? Do you think maybe you'll want to do this? Just letting you know it's there. It is something that has to do with the stats feature. If you did actually follow the graphing calculator handbook last night and do it, you would have had to just write them all back in because it would have gotten rid of them all. Does anybody's calculator, or is anybody's calculator missing one of the L's? Can you check out your list really quickly? Every now and then kids accidentally delete a whole column and they can't get it back. You did that once? Do you have it now? What are you missing? You're missing L1. Okay, if you're ever missing an L, it happens like, I think what happens is like you scroll all the way to the top, and then if you hit delete, I want to do it again because I know this L2. I think you can do second insert. Yeah. Guys, where's the shortcut to L1? The handbook told you. I mean, you could go to list and could hit enter. Second one, awesome. Second one, L1, second two, L2. I might have just messed up this table. But if you ever delete a whole list, do second insert, it'll put a blank column for you. You can fill in the name of it with L1. Anyway, something random that happens. Okay, calculators look okay? Cool. What happens if I go right now with this all ready to go and I hit graph because I think that's the next thing it asks of me? What's supposed to show up according to the handbook? What didn't show up? I put the tables in. I hit the graph button. When you hit graph, the graph button, where is it graphing from? Exactly. So, was I just at the y equals? Was that what I was trying to graph? My y equals is empty, and even if it was full, it wouldn't show the right thing. So how do I go ahead and get my stat plot to show? You could do second y equals. That takes so long. You have to hit enter, you have to go over and select the on, and then you have to go back and hit the graph. Isn't there a shorter way? What changed? Plot 1 is now turned on. What did I show you yesterday you can do without going to the second y equals, yeah, and turning the plot on? You can just go up, and you can deselect it and say no more stat plot. Or you can select it and say stat plot, please. Right? Anyway, that's a cool idea. Do you see why now, if this was selected and if your lists were empty, it's going to give you an error? It's going to try to graph a list and it's not even there, so it's going to say error. And you're like, what? What's wrong? I don't understand. I'm just trying to graph. If one of these accidentally gets turned on and your lists are empty, or even if they're full, it's not going to be graphing necessarily the right thing. Now when I graph, perfect. What's really nice about, do you guys have your calculator worksheet number 2? Okay, go ahead and look at number 1. Just the table. Hopefully last night you looked at the words too, if you were starting it. So if you didn't look at the words, you could be in some really big trouble, not literally just kind of right now. Just the table. What are those x values? Or those list 1 values? They're not technically x, it's time, right? Years? Okay. What are they? How big are they? Huge! 1,980. Okay, in context, what is it actually? The year 1980. Okay, you read. But 1,980 and 1,981. Think about a normal 10 by 10 grid. Where is that data going to be if you made list 1, 1,980, 1,981? Where is your data? Way out there somewhere, right? Now, how far spread, I don't want to go into all these different stats terms. Let's just say how far spread will that data be all the way out there? How close are those years together? Pretty close. So you go 1,980 way over there and they're all grouped up. Question, how would you find it in the graph without just zooming out, zooming out, zooming out, zooming out to where this little tiny bit of data might not even look like anything and so you won't even see it? There's something cool in the zoom. Hey, zoom stat. Is that zoom number 9? Cool. Did I need it for this one? No, because what was true about my list 1s? My list 1 variables. Weren't they small? Okay. So since they were small, I didn't need to use zoom 9. Oh, I forgot there's so many random annoying zooms. Coming. There you go. Nope, I just passed it. Anyway, zoom 9 was down there somewhere in my silly calculator on my computer. It will go ahead and find that data wherever it is, and it'll give you a window that shows you the left and the right and the top and the bottom, yeah? Now, would I personally, from what I've talked about the last couple of days, would I like this window? No. I almost like it. And technically over here, weren't we supposed to get the window to look kind of like this? What don't I like about this window? What can't I see? I can't see the y-axis. At least I don't think so. It's dotted. What does that mean? Where am I going to go to change, manipulate? Just go to the left a little bit? Window. I don't want to zoom out. It's a good spread. Like it's a good zoom on the data. I just need to go to the left. Which variable am I changing to go left a little bit? Not y. X-min. But another hint, if I can't see it, there's something that's not, there's some spread of x's or y's that is not going from a negative to a positive. In order to see the axes, I need to see the zeros. In order to see the zeros, I need to go from a negative to a positive. Now, not too shabby. And isn't that pretty much stinking close to the one that I'm supposed to get anyway? If you didn't already, write zoom stat. It's a great one to use. But let's pause since we're looking at graphing calculator worksheet number 2 anyway. Those of you that did read the little blurb above the table, why are we not using 1,980 to denote the year 19? What are we using instead? 1. It's since the year 1980. So we can say, after the year 1980, how many years have passed? 0. But 1981, okay, how far away are we? 1 away, 2 away. What would 1985 be? What would 1990 be? Did you guys just do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 0, 5, 10, 15, 20? Which one messed up the pattern? 1998. A lot of people just start saying, yay, 5, 10, 15, 20, and don't think about it. Just be careful. It was how many years away? So 19, was it 80 or 98? 98. How many years away from 1980 was it? 18. It wasn't supposed to be 20. It was supposed to be 18. If you haven't gotten there yet, you just got to 1 up and you won't make that mistake. Oh, you were supposed to do 1, 2, 3 on the worksheet. How did it take me that long to catch up? Anyway, I apologize. What happened in the next part of the handbook? Because you guys had regressions in 1, 2, and 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe you had to go to the handbook to remember what regressions were all about. In order to do number 11, which is for the table that we had, hopefully you guys are filling in 10 and 11. If you didn't do that, as you're doing 1, 2, and 3 in the worksheet last night, looking at the handbook. What is a regression? Who figured it out last night and can give me like a succinct description? It doesn't have to be a definition. What does a regression do? What is it? Kind of like a line of best fit, super similar, but it doesn't always have to be a line. What was number 2 and 3 asking for? Quadratic regression, aka you're looking for a parabola, because some things move in a parabolic fashion, right? Maybe some data moves parabolically as well. Line of best fit. You guys have heard that before. You saw it, I think, in Algebra 1. Well, you did it in the old Algebra 1 book, which is what you guys should have had. You just switched off. Okay. Line of best fit. Does the data always have to be the stat plot, like the little boink, 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 the scatter plot? That's the technical term. For a line of best fit. Oh my goodness. My stack is stuck in my throat. Cool. Anyway. Does all the data need to be on the line for it to work? Do all the little scatter plots need to be on the line? No. Now what happened in this one when you graphed? Well, first, hold on, how do we find it? Sorry, we haven't graphed it yet. How do you find a linear regression? Stat. Now what? Calc. Go over to the calc menu. This is where you can do stuff. We won't do much. This is mostly for like a stats class. But you run, which one's linear? number 4. If you want quadratic, number 5. Cubic, number 6. I don't think you have any cortex right now, but this one says linear regression to number 4. And what does it find for you? A function. That was like the general description I was looking for. It finds a function that generally matches the data or describes the movement or the growth or decay of the data. So what should you guys write down or have written down for number 11? Y equals?
Negative 2x.
Plug it in. Negative 2x plus 8. Y equals negative 2x plus 8. And then in number 12 it says, hey, go put that where? Go graph it. So getting back to what I was asking about the line of best fit, when we graph the regression that you find with the stat plot turned on, in this example, what ended up happening? But is this a lot like reality of different studies and numerical data that you might be gathering? No. Usually you're going to have like stuff all over the place, a few outliers like way out there of funky circumstances or funky situations, but a line of best fit shows you the general trend. Does that make sense? I need you guys to write a word down. Actually, it's on the board. You see superimpose? I need you to write that right next to this box. You might or might not have seen that in Graphing Calculator Worksheet 2. Was it in 1, 2, and 3? It might come later. Can you see superimpose? Okay. Maybe it comes a little later in the worksheet. If you see the word superimpose, I want you just to attach it to graph the regression. Does that make sense? It's going to say superimpose the regression. That just means take it and put it with the scatter plot. Put it with the stat plot. Put it with the data so that you can compare it to. Does that make sense? So superimpose means graph. Superimpose means graph. And this is where I would put it right here under number 12. Superimpose means graph. Okay, with that we get to the end of, this is called the handbook. Took me a second. So let's go ahead and go to the worksheet. Let's see how you guys felt with it last night. Give you a chance to ask me any questions that you have on 1, 2, and 3. I'll pull up the answers in just 1 second, so that you guys can compare. But did you have any questions as far as how to deal with what was asked? And you didn't even know where to start. Not too bad. How many of you guys actually made 1980 0? Keep your hands up if you made 1998 18. Thanks for keeping it. It says run the linear regression. That's just number 1. What should your answer look like according to the directions right now? An equation. Good. Good. Y equals mx plus b plugged in. Number 2. Same table. They just changed it up a little bit. Letter A. What should your answer look like? Don't tell me the actual answer. See if you can figure out what I'm asking. A number with referring to a population, not a decimal though. Do you guys catch that the population is being measured in thousands? So I guess you could write the word thousands, or you could apply it and multiply by 1,000. And then maybe you wouldn't have the same decimal that you started with. So I guess you could write the label thousands. That's what I was looking for. It should be a number in the thousands, or I guess with a label of thousands representing population. Letter B, what's going on there? You write the year. But wait, what if you get something like 30? You just write 30? 30 years after?
19.
30
years after 19.
Yeah, 30 years after 1980, which would be 2010, right? Now, I just made up 30. We'll get back to that in a second. But you're not just writing the years from 1980, you're telling me the year. If you were a statistician, you don't just randomly throw out numbers. You have to tell the poor people that need to hear the data what it means, or else they're going to be lost. Number 3, oh, you're just finding, what's the answer look like? What kind of equation? Quadratic. You want to check 1, 2, and 3? All right. I showed a little bit of the work as well. pencils have come up, make sure you make it back on the ground real quick. You just don't want to be caught with a pencil on your desk as there's gravy. Yes, kind of what we do with phones during the tests, except don't throw them. Nicely place them under upside down. Perfectly. With no possibility of any noise emitting from them. Once again, I apologize. I rounded 3 decimal places, so check and see if yours measures up, even if you might not have put all 3. Or you put 1. Exactly. So apply it. Now wait. Is it 2018 or is it 2019?
Because it doesn't quite.
Good. Because it's during the year 2018. Is it going to be at January 1st of 2018? No. Just something for you to keep in mind. It will reach it at 2018, but if you're having to explain this to somebody with the data, you'd be like, yeah, but it's not going to be there for like the beginning of the fiscal year sort of thing. Does that make sense? It'd be later. 1/5? Yeah, like March-ish. Questions that you can formulate without going and rechecking everything. Some of you are like, oh, that just, no, I have to go recheck that somewhat wrong. Is there something where you were close or where you're like, I think I read it wrong? Need some clarification. I can try to zoom in. It's going to cut something off.
So how did you like first table to
First table, and this is partially, last night you kind of just had to figure it out, right? So let me describe. If we're, or when we're picking x's and y's, which correspond to, I think, in your stat plots, almost, well, I think all of you should have L1 as your independent and L2 as your dependent. When you turn on the stat plot, there's an x and a y. So you have to choose which one goes in L1, which one goes in L2, otherwise it is going to be skewed. I chose x as year because remember x is the independent variable. And for all practical, non-theoretical, higher physics and string theory purposes, time is just going to keep on going at the same rate for us in a certain given time frame. Or I should say moving at a certain speed. But time is going to move one way. Time is going to be independent. Time is just going. So if time is a variable, I almost always make it my x. Same thing in number 3, I made time my x. What's changing? What is fluctuating? What am I really trying to measure? What's the function that I'm trying to look at? Population. Does that make sense? So population was my L2, height was my L2. And then when I go ahead, I just threw in these values exactly as they were. If you changed one of these accidentally, or you typed something in twice, or you skipped one and then put something else at the end, these are going to be a little bit different. So it could just be maybe a little bit of input error. It happens to the best of us. But then otherwise the key was making 1980 0, making that 5 and 10. Any other questions?
Alright, so 4B, it says at what time does the object reach its maximum height?
Oh, you kept going? Snazzy. We'll peek at it real quick.
I thought we did.
I think it was just, no, it's okay. Keep going.
Alright,
They will
so
benefit from your question.
do you graph it and then do you find the maximum point in the graph? Is that how you do it?
Go team, that's perfect. Because you find that maximum and then you remember, because we're not talking about solving things algebraically right now, we're just talking about using the calculator. So that maximum was supposed to set off a ding ding ding, hey, second trace, go find the maximum feature. But question, are you going to be able to find the maximum of a table or of a regression? So you're going to have to make sure you graph the regression, you graph the function, and you find that maximum using the feature in your grapher, right? And then they're not asking for the maximum height. All of that's part of it. What are they asking for? A big part of math is can you read and figure out what you're looking
So for number 3, are you supposed to just plug in the time into the x and
The L1,
height L1 and then height into the
and then run your quadratic regression, it should just spit it out for you. Or if you guys wanted to, couldn't you technically, if you were afraid that you were entering in things in data points wrong, couldn't you have done L1, L2 for number 1 and 2, L3, L4 for number 3? But how could you have done that? Can you run regressions on different lists?
Yeah.
How?
Oh,
Okay, if we go to stat, and if we go over to calc, and if we go to linreg, number 4. Uh-oh. Now what? Go up to the what? The stat plot? That's true. Either way you could do plot, but what do you need to change in that plot? Yeah. Yeah. So you could have just changed, and you could have like turned off plot 1 and turned on plot 2 and made plot 2 be L3 and L4. Now some of you are like, that's annoying. Well, yeah. Because some of you just missed something. You won't know what it is until you re-enter all the data. Struggles with stats courses in college. Anyway. And accounting courses and business courses and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, whenever you're dealing with lots of numbers. If one goes wrong, alright, cool kids. For the most part, calculator worksheet number 2. I wanted to make sure you could do 1, 2, and 3 because they kind of deal with asking questions where you have to read them carefully and figure out. You guys got to peek at 4 too if you didn't peek on going. You're following the same trend in the sense of having tables. Some of them will give you the X's and Y's. Some will just give you like the labels like I did up above with the year and the population. You're going to be using the functions that we talked about. You might be using some of the older functions as well. Read the questions carefully. On the back side, let me see if there's anything too crazy. Superimpose! Hey, there it is. Right there, superimpose. Not too bad. Okay. So I'm going to have you guys go ahead and finish up calculator worksheet number 2 tonight. Perfect, that is the homework. But what else do you think I want pretty much done for tomorrow? Because you were, oh, you're right there. And some of you are like, this is so much easier than the other stuff. Okay? So work carefully. Some of you, once again, you're just getting used to the calculator. You haven't used it before. Take time in the handbook. Make sure you know how to do each of the features. The handbook is going to get hard around number 18. But if you follow the handbook, and if you read carefully and just follow the step-by-steps, you'll be fine even on a crazy number 18, 19, I want handbook finished tonight. I want calculator worksheet number 2 fully attempted for tomorrow. We're going to come in, we're going to see what questions you have in the worksheet after we grade it. And then we'll probably go over the piecewise one at the end. That one's always a little funky. And then see if you guys need anything else as we review for Friday's quiz. Sound good? Alright, any questions on the stuff? Any more assignments?